Good afternoon from Droitwich, and that's in the West Midlands, not far southwest of Birmingham. Here with PCSO, Police Community Support Officer Aidan Goundry. Aidan, thank you so much for welcoming me here in Droitwich. And as you'll be able to see, Aidan is in full uniform, on duty, I believe, today. This is a lunchtime half hour that you've managed to squeeze in. Again, many thanks on that. And we're going to have a wander along a canal in Droitwich and have a chat about a variety of things. Live as a PCSO, your cystic fibrosis condition and how that affects or doesn't affect the work you do, and indeed the IPA, the International Police Association, of which you're a very active member. So here we go. Let's we'll wander down here. And so you're a police community support officer, PCSO, here in West Mercia. Tell me about your application to join West Mercia as a PCSO, given your medical condition. Was that any particular bar to proceedings, or did it go as smooth as anything?
Well, obviously I left university having gained a criminology and sociology degree, and the reason for that was I'm from a policing family, and so I'd always wanted to go into the service myself. However, as you've alluded, I do have cystic fibrosis, which is a lifelong condition which affects a range of parts of the body, but mainly affects the respiratory system, and so sort of breathing difficulties and also some slight troubles with gaining weight and physical exercise. So at one point it was thought that perhaps I wouldn't be able to join the police family at all. However, when the role of the community support officer was introduced, the key part of that is we are not expected to get involved in physical confrontation in the same way as our police constable colleagues, and therefore it has a very different requirement on physical capabilities, and that meant that my condition, which is officially classed as a disability, was not a factor that went against me. And so, as I said, once I graduated from university, funnily enough just up the road at Worcester, I applied and was very, very pleased to be successful in my application. And that will have been, well, it was the October when I joined, and so in this October coming it will have been 7 years since I joined West Mercia.
Casting your mind back then, so no particular or unexpected challenges in the recruitment process then?
Not in the recruitment process, no, not at all. As I said, because the role of the PCSO, we're not expected to get involved in physical confrontation. However, what our main remit is that community engagement, predominantly focused around the significant community presence. And so the only area there was the idea that at times we may be expected to do prolonged periods of foot patrol. But again, the idea of that is you're not power marching through a village or anything like that. You're supposed to be going at a reasonable pace, and you're supposed to be going at a pace that allows you to engage with the community, and also at a pace that allows you to see what might be going on. And so, and equally, everyone knows about the old fabled T-spots, and again, that's a central part of policing engagement.
Expand on the T-spots. Those not all our audience may know about T-spots, so expand on that.
Well, there's the old joke that a good police officer never gets wet, and the reason for that is whenever it rains you're supposed to have a wide range of contacts who you can always stop in to say hello to and have a cup of tea with, and generally check how things are with them. And so that again is the fantastic element of engagement, whether that be an individual, a community group, a school or a partner organisation. Then what that does as well is really breaks up that patrol that you have to do, and whilst not sort of shirking off as it were, does allow you to take those breaks, and also delivers that engagement that we need, and fantastically does often provide you with a high level of intelligence that helps the team to do the job we're here to do.
That intelligence point you make, that so much intelligence, including at the counter-terrorism level, so much of that will start from the personal contact that the PCSO or potentially the police constable may have with members of the public, simply engaging with them on that one-to-one basis.
Completely. And what you've got in your safe enablement teams is officers who, unlike our patrol colleagues who go wherever they're sent, we are focused on a single geographic area. And that means that the residents and the community get to see us all on a very regular basis, and we develop those personal contacts. But then coupled with that, a key part about the police community support officers is that we do not have the same equipment that our police constables have. I've got a couple of torches on my belt. However, we do not carry a baton or the Parva or CS spray, and certainly no tasers. And a suggestion there is that in some people's eyes that makes us more approachable, and so they feel more comfortable to speak to us on occasion. Of course, there's very, very justifiable reasons for our constable colleagues to have those items, but it's not something that we need. And although we're still part of that one family, sometimes the interpretation of what a CSO is for can become slightly different. And it's, as well, we sometimes will engage with a family over a small matter and help them to resolve it, and then that is what leads them to...
You're establishing the trust. You're
Precisely.
establishing the rapport. People will see you as Aidan, possibly beyond the uniform.
Exactly. So, and a big part of that is as well our schools engagements. Wherever possible, we spend a lot of time in the school, both primary, junior and high schools, where we develop the relationship with the young people, and then when they are older themselves, it's very different to have an issue with a police officer you've never met. However, with someone who, they visited when you were in year 5 and you saw them when you were in year 8, and now you're 20 years old, but you've known that person for the best part of your life, and they've always been a friendly, reassuring figure when they have engaged with you.
It's, I must admit, that's a particular bee in my bonnet, if you like, the youth engagement side, the youth support, but this conversation is more about you than it is my views, so we'll... but on the... you mentioned then that as a PCSO, first of all, you don't have the equipment that would allow you with greater confidence to get involved in hands-on in fights and the like, and stopping them. Have there been instances where, though, you have found yourself in that situation, and how have you dealt with it? How have your colleagues dealt with it?
Well, they have. I mean, the nature of the job we're in, we are still wearing a policing uniform, and so no matter how you want to dress it up, there will always be some people who do not look past the uniform and see who we are. And those are slightly more complicated times. You've still obviously got your verbal skills, which you always rely on, and we do get given basic self-defence training, as do all of our officer colleagues. And then what you rely on when it does reach that point is the team that you've got with you. And the positive there is that I have sort of complete faith in my constable colleagues and the response officers who support us, and I know full well that should there become a more severe issue, they will not be far away to come and assist where needed. And again, it's as I alluded to at the start, that whole police family ethos. We may work in different areas, have slightly different remits, but our end purpose is all the same. It's predominantly protecting the community, but part of that is protecting each other as well and supporting each other when it's needed.
There are quite a number of PCSOs that having proved themselves as PCSOs apply to become a police constable, and then indeed may work their way up the promotion ladder. Your particular situation, does that bar you from applying as a police constable? Well, does it bar you as applying as to be a police constable?
Well, on that, I mean, it's understandable why a lot of my colleagues would look to transfer, because the unfortunate thing with the PCSO role is we are limited. We don't have a promotion structure as the regular officers do, and so you could be a PCSO for 30 years and remain in that capacity. That said, when a PCSO becomes a PC, I mentioned about them getting sent anywhere, and so you can lose a lot of local knowledge that is no longer utilised, which I do think is a shame. For myself, it might be that the force were willing to make some reasonable adjustments to help that happen, but my personal view there is most of my restrictions would be around the physical side, and although I might be competent for investigations and for doing the work of a constable, I wouldn't want the force to make adjustments for a physical reason, because those guidelines, if you will, are in place not just to protect the public, but also to protect myself and also my colleagues. And therefore, if those guidelines were changed or adapted, and then it would reduce that protection that is given to all of us.
Yes.
Because even if I were competent for the investigations, but then I wasn't able to suitably defend myself and my colleagues, should the issue arise, then we would be doing ourselves and the public a disservice.
So although from your description, actually we'll spin the camera around a little, because rather than having a bunch of nettles behind, let's just take a moment to look at the canal. Looks disused canal behind us. I want to come back to the PCSO PC element in a minute or two, but so
this is one of the fantastic things about the Droitwich area, in that we are very lucky to have some very beautiful countryside in which we patrol.
And we've walked along the footpath just here. Oh, and look, just down here, there's some ducks. They just sat there quietly. Fortunately, we haven't disturbed them. Let me just go on this side, and so we can have the canal path, the canal itself behind. So you've described there why you wouldn't wish the force to make adjustments for your circumstances, or indeed others in similar circumstances. But you know, not least through your experience, the background you have prior to policing, do you feel there are opportunities, or would you like there to be opportunities for you over and above the PCSO role?
I think anyone would possibly be not being entirely truthful if they didn't want any opportunities. That said, and it's something I know that has been mentioned around the halls of the NPCC in the past,
National Police
at ACPO level.
Chief, oh goodness me,
the National Police Chief Council, or the Association of Chief Police Officers.
Yes.
Where perhaps there could
formally
be a slight structure of promotion for PCSOs, perhaps having senior CSOs to delegate some of the roles of your police sergeant.
Yes.
I do feel that would be an area worth exploring, because, as we mentioned, a lot of very experienced PCSOs, should they want that progression, do have to become PCs in order to get it. And so you do lose very experienced people from that role. I mean, prior to sort of starting recording, you mentioned about the direct entry inspector.
Yes.
Now, obviously they have very different role when it comes to frontline policing, and so perhaps on the terms of physicality that would be possible. However, one of the things I love about my role is that community engagement and the very possibility of getting out on foot patrol in uniform, which is something I'm incredibly proud to wear, and engaging with the people who we are here to serve and look after. And as soon as you step away from that, it becomes a very different role, I feel. And I think I would, although I'm sure I would relish the challenge of having those different opportunities, I do think that I would miss the frontline element of policing.
The policing, the day job aside, you've made yourself very active in the IPA, the International Police Association. And you've been active, I think, for a number of years now. So how did you get involved in the IPA, and what sorts of things have you been doing that have given you particular satisfaction in that? I thought that was a call to assist there for a second or two, in which case, but it appears not. So IPA, tell us about the IPA.
So the International Police Association was in fact founded in England in, they'll lynch me if I get it wrong, 1960, I believe. And with that, it's a friendship association for police officers from around the world. Currently, I believe about 65 countries internationally are members. And its main purpose is for travelling, meeting up and socialising. However, in recent years, we've also branched out hugely into increasing the professional aspects of what is on offer. And so for me, that is whenever because I'm a hugely keen traveller and also immensely proud of being a member of the police service. And so this association brings the two together absolutely perfectly. And so on a social aspect, I've travelled around the world using it, mainly through Europe and Asia, but also some fantastic trips to Russia to meet our colleagues there. But then also I've attended training seminars in Scotland, several times in Germany in Gimborn, where we happen to own a castle where we host our training.
A castle? Goodness me!
Exactly.
This sounds a wonderful place for training.
Exactly.
Sorry, I interrupt you.
And even spending a week with the police in Estonia,
Yep.
where I spent a bit of time with them, but also delivered some talks on community policing in the United Kingdom.
Yes.
And I might be biased, but I'm very much of the opinion, if you want external training, yes, if it's for SWAT or firearms or something, you might go to the Americans, but if you want community policing, then you should contact the Brits every day of the week.
Recognition that each country has strengths, the corollary, each country has policing weaknesses, and an opportunity to learn from those that have the strengths in their armoury, as it were.
Entirely, yeah, and that's not to say that any other countries are not equally as good at community policing, but it's just we have been doing it for a long time, and we can always all learn something from each other.
This is quite a narrow footpath, so one of the things, if I spin the camera around, I've found on these policing friendship tour walks and video chats is never quite knowing what to expect as we I have remarked on this once or twice before, but what I do like particularly about this route is that the ground is solid, and sometimes the ground has been most unpleasantly not solid. So the IPA, you two further elements I'm just keen to explore about your work in the IPA. One of which I know that you're doing some work in preparation for a trip to Africa, but perhaps prior to that, you mentioned to me last time we met that you're developing an app that's hoping to improve the way in which those in the IPA members can actually liaise one with another across international boundaries.
Of course, yes. So at the minute, if you want to go and meet some of our colleagues overseas, you have to send a letter attachment via email, which gets bounced around several points of contact before reaching its destination. This is back from when we were first integrated, and when the letters were the only means of secure communication. Of course, the world has changed somewhat now.
Just a bit.
And so my design is using ideas of Google Maps with markers and the likes, where each member can have their own profile, and we'd be able to communicate directly through messaging in the app. If you think of the map view on booking.com, or even just on Google Maps, where you have markers showing what's available.
And is that work in progress? Is that a beta app, or is it live and up and running?
At the moment, it's possibly not even a beta, in that it's got the design and the proof of concept through an alpha version, and now it's just sitting with the international executive, who are in charge of all of the sections worldwide, to explore what ways we might be able to fund something like this.
So it might be coming to a smartphone near our readers and listeners quite soon.
I would hope so, certainly.
And so here we are. We'll turn to the right as you've suggested. Steps. I'll let you go first, if I may, on the steps.
Of course.
And we'll get. Here we are, making our way from the canal, and we're just something of a wider path. So. From a cameraman point of view, it'll be, says he, famous last words, a tad easier on the, there we are, gate is shut, tad easier on the, hopefully keeping you in frame.
So hopefully in September we'll be able to sort out funding for that, and then yes, watch this space.
And Gambia, I think it was. Tell us about the IPA plans for Gambia.
Well, as you mentioned, since I've joined the IPA about 4 years ago, I've become very, very active, and I run the branch at a local level, and then I'm the vice chair for the entire region, and even
the region being
all of the West Midlands.
Okay.
And last year was co-opted onto the national committee, and so because of all of that, I was approached by a gentleman who is a member of the IPA in his own right, but then he's also the chairperson of the National Police Aid Charities, known as NPAC, and they are a team of mainly retired but some serving police officers and staff, and their purpose is to deliver aid to countries across the world, but predominantly in Western Africa. And so, and they've been doing this for about 15 years, very successfully. So this gentleman approached me and said that they were looking at providing a large number of ambulances to the Gambia. And he thought it would be a fantastic event for the IPA to get involved with, and asked if I would become the liaison for the IPA to recruit all of the team to drive the ambulances and vehicles, and to be one of the leads on the operation.
So these then are what will be operational ambulances in the Gambia, are they? And so new or former ambulances here in the UK or potentially elsewhere?
Well, almost. So they will be operational, but not in the sense of our big yellow box vans, but more if you think of community ambulances and patient transport. And I mean, what you've got to remember is in the Gambia, this infrastructure is very poor at best, and so even just being able to transport someone with injuries to a hospital is limited, and that's on injuries, but let alone ones like pregnant mothers who are in childbirth and the likes. These are all areas where mortality and risk of injury are hugely severe. And so the ambulance in question will be ones that we've acquired from organisations like SAMA, which would be sort of the French or Spanish search and rescue. Bear in mind that overseas it's normally the fire brigade who provide these ambulatory services. And so we will be looking to acquire these from our contacts across France and Spain, and then myself and my team will go into Spain, collect the vehicles, and then ideally in the space of a week, we'll transfer them across the Sahara Desert down through Western Africa to deliver them to our contacts in the Gambia to distribute to the community hospitals.
And so at what point are you hoping to deliver these ambulances? Do you have a date in mind?
We have a set-off date already in mind. For operational reasons, I'm not actually allowed to disclose that.
Right, okay. But it's not next week, though.
It's not. It is in March 2022.
Okay.
The reason for caution is we will be travelling through some areas that could be considered hostile and risk.
So if we said March or thereabouts in 2022.
That's right, yes.
And in the meantime, you've got the challenge of acquiring the ambulances, of lining the team up, of making sure that the Gambia is ready to accept the ambulances on arrival. So there's quite a task there. And I imagine fueling these ambulances as well. So there is a cost associated with all of this.
There is, definitely. I mean,
despite best efforts in sort of putting time in, as I suspect you do, for free, there's still an out-of-pocket cost that needs to be covered.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, we are very lucky in that the NPAC team are very experienced, and they're the ones who have these contacts to find what we need to. So my remit initially has been to recruit and develop the entire team who will be the drivers.
Yes.
But then, as you say, it's a huge undertaking, and we are expecting to have to buy the ambulances themselves even. And so with our target of around 30 vehicles to take, the overall funding that we're trying to reach is about £380,000.
Goodness me. I'm tempted to well, I will ask here. So how far are you into raising that, and how far are you into actually recruiting the drivers and others potentially for this?
Well, the first question is currently zero.
Right.
But that's because before we could start, we had to recruit the crew.
Okay.
And I'm happy to say that we have got a full complement of British crew members already. And I'm just waiting on confirmation, because given that it's an IPA, International Police Association involved event, I decided very early on that we would show that international friendship by trying to get at least one European officer per van. And so I'm currently waiting on colleagues from across Europe to reply so that they would join. So we've got a full complement of British officers, and we're just waiting for Europe to confirm, and then the fundraising will begin in earnest.
So that rather brings me on to in this policing friendship tour and the videos that I'm recording with various policing officers, staff, suppliers, academia and others. Each time I put together a recording, I ask the person walking with me to nominate a charity. Now I know what your charity or charities may well be, so rather than me disclose what they are or what it might be, do share with us.
Well, I suppose there are two. I mean, at the start we mentioned about my own medical condition. There's a there's a national one called the Cystic Fibrosis Trust who they do a lot of work developing medicines and working on the research and the lobbying the government for more support, and that cause is very noble, certainly, but one a bit closer to my heart is called Cystic Fibrosis Care, and that's a very local charity. And what they do, they don't do the research funding or anything like that. They try and support the patients on the ground. So if you are struggling to pay your car parking when you travel up to the hospital, or if you need a new fridge for your medicines because yours broke, that's what they... And they also do their best to fundraise for the local cystic fibrosis ward, where they try and just make the place a little bit more pleasant, considering some of the patients can spend 2-3 weeks there at a time, or even more. So one close to my own heart would be Cystic Fibrosis Care. However, as a one-off, as it were, as I mentioned, my team do have quite a long way to go to raise the almost £400,000.
That haven't yet started, yes. So
the National Police Aid charities could also be one worth mentioning, which...
The National Police Aid charities.
Yes. We are actually... I recently set up a Virgin Giving page for the team, and we are under the operation name of Op Zephyr, which is where we get our logo from, and also our... well, I'll let you sort of look into what the Zephyr means.
Operation Zephyr, Z-E-P-H-Y-R. I can't do the phonetic alphabet, but...
That is the one, and I think you'll find it very fitting for the purpose we're following.
We'll certainly make sure that those details are available on the Policing Insight website. Aidan, it's been an absolute pleasure walking with you. We've doubled back on ourselves a little bit as we've come along on our walk, and this was the spot at which there was a small family of ducks. Well, there's a pigeon. Well, there's a pigeon still. There's a pigeon there.
The ducks are still there.
The ducks are still there as well. So I'm just very gently going to bring them into shot. And I think no further than that, because it might disturb them. Aidan, thank you so much.